Good morning. Welcome to North Point. Oh, we are so glad you're here with us today. If we haven't met yet, my name is John. I help out as one of the pastors here. But I got to be honest, I kind of thought I might be the only one here today. So I am impressed. Springfield showed up. Welcome, Springfield. It's good to have you. Also, I want to take a moment, welcome our Republic campus over in Retmo, who's got some hoops and groups. Look at this. Yeah, I like this. And our Dream Center campus today. Dream Center, we love you. And Nixa campus, of course. Our Nixon campus, I heard they are raising money for student camp and for fundraisers and scholarships. And I heard that they have a polar plunge dunk tank. So use like perfect weather for that. So it's great. Y'all are built different down there. But also want to take a moment, welcome everyone who's watching online. It's good to have you. I hope you have an extra cup of coffee for me. But today, really this weekend. This has been a busy weekend, right? We've had Valentine's Day on Friday, and if Valentine's Day came and went and you didn't get any chocolates or candies or cards or flowers from your secret admirer, we're just going to assume that they're taking the secret part very seriously. And you are very, very loved, okay? And Miley Cyrus said you can buy your own flowers anyway. So there you go. Permission received. But today we are in this series called Whac-A-Mole. And we're taking a swing at some issues that pop up. And a couple weeks ago we talked about family issues and how all of our families have some dysfunction. And this isn't like 3 easy steps to fix the dysfunction in your family. No, y'all are too messed up for that. But this is, how do you invite Jesus into your family, into that dysfunction? He's the only one that can bring health and hope in hard situations like that. And as well, last week we talked about taking a swing at injustice, and we had Caleb and Terrell share really about racial injustice and what does Scripture say? What are their experiences here, which is so crucial to a mission like this that we have, to create a safe place. It's so important to be as inclusive as possible for so many people, and a message like that was so helpful for us on this journey. When we create this safe place, I truly believe that people start to experience Jesus and see him in the clearest view. And today we are talking about something that all of us deal with, we've all got. And today we're taking a swing at your stinking thinking, all right? I know you got it, okay? We're taking a swing at your stinking thinking. So today, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I am going to ask you to think about what you think about. Think about that, huh? Today, I'm going to ask you, think about what you think about. And some of you are like, no, you don't want to know the crazy stuff in my head. I'm like, yeah, there's a reason your mama told you not to say everything that pops in your head, okay? It's usually not kind. It's usually not nice. It's not respectful. It's weird, okay? But like, but we all have this. We all have this stinking thinking. We've all got this little voice in our head that keeps talking and talking and talking, and it never shuts up. For some of us, we can't even sleep at night because we're just like, we can't shut off our mind, and it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going. For some of us, we encounter situations or circumstances that we replay the same scenario over and over and over in our head. And, we got 100 different times, and we've thought about every possible outcome. And that little voice just keeps going and going and talking and talking. It doesn't shut up, right? Some of us, we spend hours telling off our coworkers and yelling at the people that have wronged us all in our head. And then when we see them, we're like, hey, how are you? It's good to see you. Love you. Isn't that funny? But like all of us, we've got this stinking thinking, okay? Our stinking thinking is the same voice that will remind us like that we opened up a text 2 weeks ago and we never responded. And we're like, I'm a terrible friend. You just talk and talk. It's that same stinking thinking that will randomly interrupt us and be like, did I shut the garage? Did I turn the oven off? Like, it's that same stinking thinking that randomly you'll wake up in the middle of the night and think about something embarrassing that you did a couple weeks ago. Like, maybe that's just my voice. I don't know. But like a few weeks ago, I was standing in line to get a smoothie. And so dumb. I was standing in line to get a smoothie, and the person in front of me, the guy in front of me was ordering, and he ordered his smoothie. He said, yeah, but I don't want any, no coconut flavoring in there, please. And I was like, and so I like tapped him on the shoulder, because like people in public love being touched. Okay. And so I tapped him on the shoulder, and I was like, I don't like coconut either. So, and he said, okay. So that was awesome. So I'm like, I don't know what I expect. Like, but I'm thinking he was going to be like, oh my, in this coconut loving world, you are the only one that understands me. Like, what was he going to be like? Let's hang out, dude. That's all. Like, no, we did not exchange numbers. Yeah, so it was awesome. That's our stinking thinking will remind us, they'll replay, it will keep going. It's like the Energizer bunny. It never shuts off. And our stinking thinking, here's what it does. It takes bad days and it makes them worse. You know, you get broken up with and you're 22 years old and that little voice in your head keeps talking and it says you're never going to get married. You have situations that pop up. You pull over on the side of the road and you got a flat tire and you don't have the tools to be able to fix it. And, you know, you're 40 years old. That little voice in your head is like, you should be more prepared than this. You should have more figured out than this. Like, it takes these bad days. You've been working hard. You've been working out and you hop on the scale and you're heavier than last week. And that little voice in your head is like, what are you doing? Why are you even trying? You're never going to look the way that you want to look. You're never going to achieve that. That little voice, it makes the bad days worse. And that little voice, it makes the good days unenjoyable. You can't even enjoy a good day. You crush that presentation at work and it's awesome. And then that little voice in your head is like, well, you're only as good as your next idea. And you better stress about what's next. And I don't know if you have another idea. I don't know if you're good enough to think of another idea. I don't know what that's going to look like. You have situations come up that are great and awesome, and you just can't even enjoy it. You got more money in the bank than you've ever had before, and that little voice in your head is like, yeah, but one bad investment, and you might lose it all. You better stress about it. You better worry about it. You better hoard it. You better save it. You better not spend it. You better keep track of every little dollar. Like, it doesn't even let you enjoy some of the things that you got. Some of you have a great relationship and things are going well, but that little voice in your head says, yeah, but maybe I could be happier. And some of you, you love your life and you love your job and you love your kids and you love your spouse and things are going well and life is good, but why are you so anxious Sunday night going into the next week? Like, why do you have so much stress and anxiety about what's next? Why do you have so much fear about when life has been so good, yet you still have so much fear? What is going on? Like, why does that little voice in your head keep going and keep talking? What it'll do is it'll make the best moments where you can't even find the good in them. It'll take your wedding day and it'll just point out all the little things that were wrong. It'll take, you've been praying to have a kid for so long and you finally do, and that little voice in your head is like, you should be more fulfilled. You should be a better parent. Here's all the ways that you're missing it. Here's all the ways that you could be better. Here's all the things that you could be doing, and you should be doing more, and you should be doing this, and you should be doing that. And things go amazing in life, and maybe the best that it's ever been, and now that little voice in your head says, this is the new normal. Anything under this, you're failing. And when things get better, that's the new standard, right? This little voice in our head, it just keeps talking. It just keeps going. It just keeps moving. And here's what happens. You get to a spot where you're like, I'll just live with it because I don't know what to do with it. And so you just deal with it and you put on a smile and you can fake it to your friends and you can fake it to those in church and you can fake it to your therapist and you can fake it to everyone around you. And you're like, I'm just going to live with it. I'm just going to deal with it. I guess I'm just going to keep going with this. But like, what do you do? What do you do with that voice? You just let it be there? And you wouldn't let anyone talk to your kids that way. You wouldn't let anyone talk to your spouse that way. And you wouldn't let anyone talk to your friends that way. But you talk to you that way. And I know that there's some people in the room and online and in Nixa and Republic Spring. You may be the happiest go lucky person on the outside. You may have a smile plastered on your face. You may be the one that's always laughing and making other people laugh. And you might have the loudest voice in your head that's tearing you down. I think about somebody that we all know, Robin Williams. Robin Williams, comedian, actor, flubber, Mrs. Doubtfire, Dead Poet Society. This is the guy that made everyone laugh. This is the guy that everyone was like, man, he's the most joyous person we've ever met. Yet he had this loud voice in his head and he ended up taking his life because of it. I think so many of us here today, like, you can only fake it for so long. You can only ignore the voice in your head for so long until you start to believe it. My question to you today is, what are you going to do about it? And I already know there's some people in here that are like, I don't even have a little voice in my head. I'm like, okay, it's the little voice in your head that said that you don't have a little voice in your head. That's the little voice I'm talking about, okay? But that's what it is. And for so many, here's my goal, okay? My goal is not like, how do we just plaster on a smile and have happiness and all of life's crappiness and we'll just fake it till we make it and we got that. Like, that's not my goal today. My goal today is to walk through, like, we all have these patterns of thinking, these cycles that we get into. And what would it look like to feed a different voice? What would it look like to finally get to a spot where that little voice doesn't rob us of all the joy in our life? And how do we start to experience life and life to the fullest? What would that look like? And so one of the first things I wrote down is that a healthy mind, when it comes to a healthy mind is not a target, it is a result. So a healthy mind is not a target. It's not like something we aim at or shoot for or strive toward. A healthy mind is not a target. It is a result of things that you are doing. So a healthy mind, here's what it's not. It's not like, hey, when I get this, then I'll feel this, right? It's not like, okay, when I hit my target weight, then I'll have a healthy mind. It doesn't like, and I get it. I bought into that. Okay, I'm 25% stud, 75% muffin. Okay, I've thought that before too. I'm like, man, when I look this way or feel it, like that's when this is not how it works. Like a healthy mind is not a target relationship. Like all the married people say amen. You're like, yeah, I bought into that. Hey, no, like this, it's actually sometimes makes it harder, right? A healthy mind is not a target salary. It's not like, hey, when I finally make this amount of money, then that little voice in my head will stop telling me things that I'm scared of or things I should be thinking of or things that are going. No, in fact, it'll probably get worse. A healthy mind is not a target weight. It's not a target salary. It's not a target relationship. A healthy mind isn't found at Target, although my wife would say we should check there just in case. So, and Home Goods and TJ Maxx. Okay. But that's like a healthy mind is not a target. It's not something we aim at. A healthy mind is a result of some things that we're doing. And like if you're into science, then you probably understand that every cause has an effect. Every input has an output. Maybe you heard that. And I think we understand this physically. Like we get this. Like we're all smart people. We understand that I can't eat Doritos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and feel good, right? Like that's just. And if I did that and I was like, man, I just don't know why my stomach hurts. Like we'd be like, okay, we know. And no one's like, man, John, let me get a pen and paper. Let me write that down. That's really good. Okay, we know that. We get that, right? And we get that there's a difference between being full on Doritos and full on steak. Like those two feel different. We're still full, but they're different, right? And so we get this physically, that what I input, like if I put in junk, I'll feel like junk. But I feel like so many times mentally we feel like we're immune to that. Like we'll be the type of people that's like, I can watch whatever I want on Netflix. It doesn't affect me, right? I can scroll all day on social media. It affects other people. It doesn't affect me, right? I can listen to whatever lyrics I want, whatever songs I want, whatever music I want. That stuff just doesn't affect me in any type of way. And, you're just lying to yourself. And here's the deal. It may not affect you tomorrow, but over time it eventually does. And it's funny because like even we start off our services with worship music. It's these lyrics that are backed in truth, that are powerful. And people get like emotional when they listen to them because what happens is you start to read these lyrics that are different than the voice in your head. These lyrics of I am enough, these lyrics of I am chosen. These lyrics of, I'm not forsaken, I am remembered, I've got a God that loves me, I am a son of daughter of him. It's funny, you start to hear these other voices that combat the voices in your head. It's like, it makes a difference. Yet mentally we're like, no, I can do whatever. No, that stuff doesn't affect me. In fact, there's a verse I want to read in Scripture. And this is a verse that if you've been in church at all, you probably know this verse. Even if you haven't been in church, you probably know this verse. It's a well-known verse, but it's in Philippians 4:8. And this is one of those verses that Paul, he writes to the church in Philippi, and toward the end of his letter, he talks about what you input and why it is so important. In fact, he says this. He says, finally, brothers and sisters, fill your minds with beauty and truth. Meditate on whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is good, whatever is virtuous and praiseworthy. I'm going to stop there. Okay, here's what he's saying. Think about these things. So in a moment, here's what I want you to do. Think about what you think about. Okay, what have you been thinking about today? What have you been thinking about this morning? What have you been thinking about while I'm talking? Okay, like think about what you think about, okay? Because here's what meditation is. When I meditate, I'm thinking deeply about something. I'm taking time to think about something. So when we think about what we've been thinking about, what have you been thinking about? What have you taken time this morning to meditate on? What have you taken time yesterday at dinner? What did you take time meditating on? It's important. Think of that. Have you been meditating on how right you are and how wrong your spouse is? Have you been meditating on how just unfair this world is? Have you been meditating on that guy that cut you off in traffic and what you would say to him if you could? Like, what have you been meditating on? And it's funny because Scripture never says that we break habits. It always says we replace habits. And so here's what Paul's assuming, that you are meditating on something. What is it that you have spent time thinking about today? What is it that you have spent time thinking about this week? It's important to think about that and make sure you know. And so many times, here's what I found. It's hard to meditate on the things that are pure and lovely and good and virtuous and praiseworthy. It's hard for me to fill my mind with beauty and truth when I have no boundaries whatsoever on social media. It is hard for me to fill my mind with beauty and truth when I click on every news article that reminds me that the world's about to end. It's hard for me to fill my mind with beauty and truth when I'm watching reality TV 24/7. Like, and here's the, I'm not saying like you can't do any of those things. This isn't like a legalistic message, all right? I'm just saying that things eventually wear on you. And it may not happen overnight, but over time it does. And you can't sit there and be like, I don't know why so much negativity has been coming out. I don't know why I'm so overstimulated. I don't know why I keep feeling like I'm not enough. I don't know why my voice in my head keeps telling me this. There's a reason that it's telling you this. It's because you've been feeding it. And what this verse says is, what would it look like if we fed another voice? And I don't know where you're at. I don't know if you're like an overstimulated mom. What would it look like to take some time in the morning and at night and like journal about some things that bring you peace? Take some time to think about some peaceful things. Maybe you're just always negative and you just realize like, man, I just really pull the bad out of every good. Like, what would it look like to write down some things that you're thankful for? What would it look like at the dinner table tonight, at the lunch table later on today, to not gossip about all the work that's been going on, but to say, hey, what are a couple good things that are going on in your life? How cool would that be to take some time to think about the good? Maybe for some of you, you've got that voice in your head that just keeps saying, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. What would it look like to replace that voice? What would it look like to feed another voice? And to say, let me look at some scripture that combats that. Like, let me get some different stuff inside me. Let me start inputting something different that tells me a different story, that teaches a different narrative. Let me get another voice inside of me that I can start listening to. Because that voice in your head will keep talking and talking and talking, and the longer you put up with it, you will start to listen to it. And I get it. Like, this is not easy, okay? This is, in an ideal world, this would be awesome. And I'm a dad. I've got a couple kids. Like, sometimes the only moment I get to myself is when I eat lunch in my car alone in the silence. And some of you are like, I'm like, no, it's the best. It is the best. And so, like, what if you took that time instead of scrolling on TikTok and you filled your mind with beauty and truth? Like, maybe for some of you, the only moment that you get is the 20 minutes on the toilet in the morning, and it may not smell like beauty and truth, but, you can fill your mind with that, right? Like, take the moments you got, carve out some time, but take the moments you got them. What would it look like if we took time to think about something else, to start inputting something else? And this is what Paul writes. He says, later on in the verse, he says, do this, when you do this, when you meditate on these things, the God of peace will walk with you. The God of peace. He could have said the God of anything, but he said the God of peace. The God that makes that yapping voice in your head get quieter and quieter. And then he says, after that, he says, I can hardly contain my joy. God's like at a poker table. He's like, I see your peace. Now let me raise you joy. Okay. When you start inputting these things, there are some natural things that start to flow and come out of you. Some peace and some joy and a healthy mind. This isn't a target that you magically hit one day. It is a calculated result that you come to. And today, think about what you think about. What would it look like if we started inputting something else? And I know, when you start to try it, you may not have instant success. When you start to do it, you may not be like, wow, that made a major impact on my day. Well, here's what I want to let you know. That's half the practice, okay? Half the practice is, how do I input these things in my life? There's another half of the practice that talks about output. And that was fun as well, okay? And so here's what I found. There's a verse, even Jesus talks about this. He says, you may have joy from time to time, but when you have my joy, then you are made complete. It talks about Paul. He says, I found a way not just to have joy, but to be content in all circumstances. There's a second part to this practice that I think sometimes we forget about. And one of the things I wrote down when it comes to joy is that if joy is tethered to good behavior, then we hold God hostage. So if joy is tethered to good behavior, then we hold God hostage. Some of us are like, okay, cool. All I need to do is input those things. Good, I got it. Okay, I can play that game. Honestly, I have really good morals and pretty good behavior, so this wouldn't be that hard, right? I don't really like rap music, so I could just input the right thing. I don't know. Maybe some of you are thinking okay, I can play this game. And here's the deal. If our joy is tethered to our good behavior, then we hold God hostage. And I think I bumped into so many people like this. You know where I bumped into them at? Church. They were just if everyone was like me and everyone just followed scripture like me and did it like me and did it the right way, then everyone would be happy. Everyone would be these. And they're some of the least joyous people I've ever met. They're the type of people, they don't bring joy when they enter a room. They bring joy when they leave a room. You know what I'm saying? Those are the type of people, they're not joy carriers, they're joy killers. Those are the same type of people that are who are we boycotting next, right? I'm boycotting Starbucks because they say happy holiday on their mugs instead of Merry Christmas, and they're trying to take the Christ out of Christmas. I'm like, okay, you're focusing on the wrong thing right now, all right? And these are the type of people that are okay, if I do this, then I get this. And that's how they live. And I think maybe you've bought into that too, where you're well, hold on, I played by these rules. I followed this. I bought the insurance, the hell insurance, and I acted this way, and I behaved this way, and I acted the way that I should, and I followed these things, but I didn't get the result that I was hoping that I'd get. Well, God never promises that. What you input does make an effect on you, but it doesn't always equal what you output. There's more at play with that. And I think so many times, just like you can't earn grace, you can't blackmail joy. That's not the way that it works. My joy is tethered to my good behavior. Then I hold God hostage. I feel like I'm owed something. And what a gross way to live. There's a second part that says this. If joy is tethered to good circumstances, then luck holds me hostage. If my joy is tethered just to good circumstances, then luck holds me hostage. If my joy is tethered to my circumstances, buckle up. It's about to be a wild roller coaster ride because, circumstances change like the wind. One day's great, one day's terrible. The next day you get high highs and low lows. And we've all gone out to lunch with people like that. And you're I can't even ride the roller coaster with you. That's so great. It's so high and low, and they just flow with the wind. And there's a famous story when it comes to luck, right? Maybe you heard it. Good luck, bad luck, who knows? There's a man who had a horse, and the horse ran away, and the neighbors came over to him, and they said, what bad luck? And he said, good luck, bad luck, who knows? The next day, the horse came back with 7 other horses, and the neighbors came over, and they're like, what good luck? And he said, good luck, bad luck, who knows? The following day, his son is riding on one of the horses. He falls off and he breaks his arm. The neighbors come over and say, "What? Bad luck." And he says, "Good luck, bad luck. Who knows?" The following day, the army comes by and he's taking all the able-bodied men to come fight in the war, but the son can't go because he's got a broken arm. And the neighbors come up and say, "What? Good luck." And he says, "Good luck, bad luck. Who knows?" If your joy is tethered to your circumstances, it is going to be a wild, bumpy ride. And I think we've all met people that they get a diagnosis that's unfavorable, yet they are still a source of hope and peace and joy. And you're like, how do I get that? We've all met people that have the life that we dream of. They've got the house that we dream of. They've got the car that we dream of, and they're miserable. What's up with that? Like, we've all met people that encounter tough, hard situations that are going through it, but for some reason have this joy exuding out of them. And we've had people where they're able-bodied and everything's going well and they're miserable. I think about Jesus, okay? We're going to be celebrating Easter in a few months. And a few days before Easter, I've always found this interesting. There's a day called Good Friday. And Good Friday is the day that Jesus was nailed to a cross, whipped, stripped, and beaten, murdered, humiliated. And we call it, why wasn't it called Bad Friday? Have you ever thought about that? It was called Good Friday. And even the day before, when Jesus is having the Last Supper with his disciples, and they're all sitting around the table, and he's with a guy who's about to betray him that would ultimately lead to his death, and he's enjoying a meal with him, and he's washing his feet, and they didn't mope, and they didn't mourn, and they didn't lament. They went to the mountains, and they ended up singing a hymn together from Jesus' great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa David, where he said, "For this is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." What? That is a bad situation. That is a bad night. That is a bad day. But we can call it good because we have a different perspective. In fact, I wrote it down this way, that if our joy isn't tethered to good circumstances, our joy isn't tethered to good behaviors, to experience joy now, I must understand that there is more at play than what I see right now. To experience joy right now, I have to understand that there is more at play than what I see right now. There is a different perspective that I need to have. And anytime you can't see what's next, anytime you can't see what's right in front of you, guess what you do? Naturally, you go back to what is comfortable. And you listen to that little cozy, warm, familiar voice in your head. And if you have not been feeding the right voice, I have no idea what that voice is going to say. But what you need is a different perspective. This is important to think about. How do you, when you can't see anything, how do you tether to the one who has the perspective that you need? One more story. There's some Canadian farmers up north. And what would happen is, being in Canada, there would be some crazy blizzards that would hit very quickly, very fast, out of the blue. You don't know what's happening. And what they would do is they'd hightail it to the barn. They'd get to the barn and they'd make sure the animals are all fed and situated for the storm. They're warm. They're going to make it through. And by the time they finish that, they hop out of the barn and they start walking toward home. But the blizzard is so strong that they can't even see what's right in front of them. And so they hightail it to what they think is home and they start walking. But because of the storm, they get disoriented and they end up walking in circles looking for that home. And they end up never making it. And there's several farmers that died because of that. The storms were so strong, they couldn't see what was in front of them. They never made it home. And so what they started doing up north is they started tying a rope from their front door all the way to their barn door. And so what would happen is when a storm hit out of the blue, they'd run out to the barn, they make sure the animals are all situated and ready to go. And what they would do is they would take that rope and they would follow it. And even when they can't see what's right in front of them, even when the wind's blowing and the storm's raging and they have no, like they just keep taking steps and they'd follow that rope and they'd trust that rope and they'd eventually make it back home. And several farmers were saved because of that. And so here's my question to you today is what are you tethered to? What is your joy tethered to? We're all tethered to something. What is it that your joy is tethered to? What is the thing that affects your joy the most? Think about what you think about. Maybe for some of you, like, because you're just looking for a rope. You're like, okay, I need to be tethered to something here. Okay, I'm just going to be, okay, here we go. Yeah, maybe I'm going to tether to my job. I think that'll do it, right? Like I'll make a name for myself and this will be my source of joy. And so I work, and I work really hard, okay? And I'm pulling and I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna do anything for an attaboy and I really want that position. And, oh, my boss really likes me right now and I'm working. I'm like, this is great. And I finally get that position and now I'm like, actually, it's the next position that I want, okay? And then you keep going and you're like, actually, it's this salary that I want, okay? And you keep going and you pull and things are going really well and you finally get a good report and everything's good and then you get to the end of this rope and you're like, what is going on? And you come up empty. You're like, okay, maybe my joy is something else. So you look around and you're like, oh, okay, here we go. You know what? I'm going to tether my joy to a relationship. That's because I'm really happy when I'm around this person, right? And so you take it and you're like, here we go. Okay, I think this is it. So, and it's this person is so beautiful and pretty and it's so great. And we love spending time together, watching movies together and holding hands. But sometimes they have a tone of voice that I don't always love, okay? And that doesn't make me happy, okay? And so, but you keep on going and you kind of get through that, but then you keep going. And then you're like, well, okay, maybe it's the wrong person. Maybe I need to tether myself to another person, okay? And so you keep going to the relationship. You're like, this is great. And then you end up empty. And maybe you're like, okay, because those two aren't very good. Maybe I just need to be tethered. My joy needs to be tethered to something good. That's what it is. I'm going to tether my joy to like my service, what I can do for others, okay? And so you find another rope right here and you're like, okay, this has got to be it, all right? And so you take it and you're like, okay, this is what I can do for you. How much can I serve? What can I give? How can people see me? And all of a sudden you don't get thanked as much as you thought you would. And you're like, okay. When you reach the end of your rope, why don't you drop yours and pick up his? There's a rope that's been there the entire time. That when you tether to the one that creates that which is good, that which is virtuous, that which is praiseworthy, that which is lovely, that which is pure, that fills beauty and truth, when you tether to that, all of a sudden, the winds and the storms and the rain and the snow and the things come your way, but you can still hold on. There is something that is stronger, and you don't reach the end of this rope. This rope holds you. And some of you, you're like, okay, like, I've never picked up this rope. It's been there the whole time. Look around. You got a God that loves you, that wants a relationship with you, and he's asking our job, the only job that we have, pick up the rope. Some of you, maybe you're like, yeah, I picked up the rope. Cool. But you haven't taken a step in years. You're just hanging out at the end of the rope. You're like, God, whatever, it's a slack line in here. It's like, take some steps. Come closer to home. And what'll start to happen when you do that, when you start inputting the right things, when you're tethered to the right thing, you start to output some pretty beautiful things. And there's a complete joy that comes with this. Paul, my last verse, it says this. It says, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or want. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. When I start to input the right things, when I'm tethered to the right thing, when I drop my rope and I pick up his, some beautiful stuff starts to come out. When I start to input love, it creates this situation where I output love. When I start to input that which is good, I start to output good. There starts to be this completeness to it. And my prayer to you today is, how do we start feeding a different voice in our head? And how do we make sure that we're tethered to the right thing? And let's take some steps from it. And I believe this type of deal, when you do this, the God of peace will walk with you. And it'll be different than maybe what you've been experiencing. So what I want to do, I want to pray. If everyone at our campuses, online, if you could close your eyes and bow your head, I want to do something a little different today. What I want you to do while we pray is, I want you to picture the one thing that you feel like is robbing you of your joy. What's that big thing? What's that person? What's that situation? What's that voice? What is that thing? And what I want you to do is I want you to picture it. And when you've pictured it, what I want you to do is put a little frame around it. I want you to make it like a little picture. Okay? And when you've got your frame around that, I want you to make it black and white. I want you to remove the color from that situation, from that person, from that thing. And now I want you to make it the size of a stamp that you can hold in your hand. This little thing, and I want you to give it to God. This big, huge voice or situation or person or thing that is in your way, that is robbing you of your joy, when we minimize it, when we give it to God, we create some room for him to be able to speak into our life. And my prayer is that we'd be able to create that room, that we'd be able to listen to him, and that we'd be able to walk that out today. In your name, amen. Amen. Well, I know at all of our campuses, okay, whether you're Republic or Springfield or Dream Center or Nixa, or even if you're watching online, you've got these connection cards, and you've got these connection cards in each one of your seats, and really this is just our way to connect with you. Okay, whether it's putting down a prayer request, whether it's name, number, email, maybe for some of you here today, it's just writing down an I will statement of saying, hey, you know, I know that I need to spend some time filling my mind with beauty and truth, or I know I need to spend some time meditating on that which is lovely and pure and good. And by writing it down, it doesn't make it like permanent. It's not like, here, okay, I did it. What it is just our way to partner with you. I know at all of our campuses, we'd love to reach out to you this week and encourage you on that journey, partner with you on that journey, maybe send you some tools and resources that have worked for us on that journey. It's helpful. And in a moment, we'll drop these in the bucket. So I want to invite our ushers forward at all of our campuses. And maybe for you today, you can check out one of these boxes. Maybe for you today, it might be, hey, I'm making a new decision to follow Jesus. It might say, for the very first time, I want to pick up his rope and I want to be tethered to him. If you're making that decision, if you'd mark that box, and then even next week, one of the best things that we do here at North Point is baptism weekend, and I'm so excited about baptisms. And so next weekend at all of our campuses, we have baptisms. If you've made a decision to follow Jesus, but you've never gone public with that, that's your next step, baptisms. And it is this way with the community around you. It's saying, hey, I'm not following Jesus alone. I'm dependent on him. I need him every day. And you got people cheering you on that are ready to follow Jesus together with you. And so that's at all of our campuses. And so whether you're wanting to get baptized or you're excited to celebrate with those that are, you know someone who is, next week will be awesome when we do that. And also, it's our opportunity to give. And when you give to North Point, you give through North Point. And one of the things that I love highlighting is anytime it's like cold, the weather's crummy outside, a nonprofit here at the Springfield campus, but I know we've got different ones across each one of our campuses, but the one here is Council Church of the Ozark, and we've got, we partner with them. They've got a women's shelter called Safe to Sleep, and anytime the weather is crummy, we had people come in earlier today. We always want to be able to open up our buildings, make sure people feel warm and safe and fed and cared for, and when we reach the end of our rope, we lean on our partners that can do even more. And Safe to Sleep is one of those. We've got lots of great community partners across all of our campuses. And when you give to North Point, you're also helping us partner with them through your generosity. And so thank you for doing that. Thank you for what you do. Last thing is, if you are a first-time guest, mark that first-time guest box on here, which if this is your first weekend and you showed up in this snow, kudos. Let me tell you, that's amazing, all right? But if you mark that first-time guest box, what we'll do is make a donation in your honor to a local nonprofit. Safe to Sleep is one of those here. There's some amazing nonprofits across all of our campuses. But ushers, you can go and pass those buckets. We can drop our cards, our giving in those buckets. And while we do that, our campus hosts are coming up to tell us what's next.